All right, all right. Grace, mercy, and peace from him who is and was and is to come very soon, I'm certain. This is Rogue Diabetic, and welcome to the digital wilderness. All right, you guys. So last night, I did a live stream about this revised draft of the negotiating text of the W.H.O. pandemic agreement. Now, after I did this, and the playback is available, the quality isn't the best, so that's part of the reason why I'm doing this upload right now, because I want to get something out there that's like, first of all, a little bit more coherent and well researched, and second of all, just a little bit like more, so you can like hear it and see what I'm saying and talking about, because the text, the screen share wasn't coming quite through, and there's audio issues, etc., etc. So today we're gonna we're just gonna do kind of a similar presentation, except here I'm just gonna do a screen recording with my software. So so we have the revised draft of the negotiating text of the WHO pandemic agreement. So part of the issue with this agreement is that it surrenders the sovereignty of the signatories to the WHO in the event the WHO arbitrarily declares a public health emergency. So this means that the WHO they could call global warming a public health emergency. Okay? And if they were to do that, I don't think they will. I think it'll be another viral infection. But basically, the WHO will have the power to, once it declares a public health emergency, basically take over everything. Right? They're gonna have a taxing authority in this agreement. From this agreement, they're gonna have the regulatory power to approve treatments or prophylaxis. So, if you don't know what prophylaxis is, look it up. But we got to stay out ahead of the algorithm a little bit. I don't want to use the V word. A prophylactic is something that prevents something. Okay, so they're going to have the right to regulate pandemic-related products, and to mandate to the member states that they have to provide them. And certain member states are going to have to pay for them, and others aren't. And it's supposed to be equitable, so everybody, like, it's kind of like communism. They're going to diagnostics. They have the regulatory authority over diagnostics, therapeutic, or prophylaxis. And they say, here's one from Article 3, Section 2, the sovereign rights to adopt, legislate, and implement legislation within their jurisdiction in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and the general principles of international law, and their sovereign rights over their biological resources. So this is like a contradiction. To achieve the objective, the parties will be guided inter alia by the following: the sovereign rights of the states to adopt, legislate, and implement within their jurisdiction in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations. So, if the WHO determines that a piece of legislation isn't in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations or the general principles of international law, they're going to be the arbiter. Okay, so that means that's like not sovereign. That doesn't uphold the sovereign rights of the state. To say that they have the right to implement legislate and implement legislation within their jurisdiction, but that the WHO has the power to be the arbiter of whether that legislation is in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations and the general principles of international law. And there's a couple even more problematic statements in this document about, but it's like along the same lines for the same reasons, where they basically say the states remain sovereign as long as the WHO, as long as the exercise of their sovereignty doesn't negatively impact their people or people from other countries. So, and once again, who's the arbiter of that? The WHO, in the event of a public health emergency. So, this is going to be entered into, and it's going to be, and there's going to be they're going to declare a public health emergency. So, after I did the stream last night, I took a look. This morning, I got onto Google and started doing some searches. The WHO pandemic agreement is kind of where I always start, especially if it's been a while since I've done any new research, just to get the headlines, okay? Because you hadn't been seeing up until, well, a day ago. It looks like now, a day ago, 1 week ago, and then 2 days ago. You hadn't really been hearing very much about this recently. Okay, they've been like, in the regular news, they've been, unless you specifically search it, and even then you weren't, a few weeks ago, you weren't getting any information, any recent information as far as news information went. Okay, the articles were all super old, but there was still, you could still get information. Obviously that's how I found the draft. But then when you just look at a news tab, a Google News tab, you've got that solar flare or whatever it was, that geomagnetic storm that they claimed happened last night. That's like the headline. Okay. Then a bunch of Trump nonsense is what's been underneath, it's always been something completely irrelevant and trivial, followed by Trump, and then Putin, Gaza, whatever. Okay, but you will know, I do see here this. I've been hearing about this flirt variant, where your COVID vaccines work against the new flirt variants. Well, I'm going to stay out of those weeds today. But you don't say, right? And then like Lucy Gray, Donald Trump, Gaza, foreign aid, moral mistakes, of strategic and moral mistakes. U.S. politicians step up condemnation of Israel. That's an interesting headline from The Guardian. So apparently some of the more left-wing politicians and actors are being more critical of Israel than they were a few months ago. But it's too little, too late. They're murdering people in Rafah now. Okay, and they've been murdering Palestinians now for 70 years. They're rated 48, 58, 68, 78, 88, 98, 18. So over like more like 75 years. The murdering thugs have been murdering Palestinians and ethnically cleansing them. So you'll see a little bit about that. And that's part of the reason why God's judgment is on this country. It's because of the murder of brown Christian women that we're engaged in, that we're supporting the terrorist apartheid state of Israel to do. Okay, but the reason why you see it in the news feeds now is it's just part, and it's the. I mean, it's that should be closer to the top line stuff than this aurora borealis. And then we've got and then the Trump stuff, of course. The totally trivial and nonsensical Trump stuff. Okay, listen, you guys. Trump isn't going to be able to stop this, even if he wanted to, and he doesn't want to. Okay, Trump declared the national emergency. Trump shut your church down. Trump shut packing plants down. Trump signed the CARES Act. Trump created the coronavirus task force. Trump put Fauci on it, and didn't do anything to restrain him or take him off, except talk a little bit of smack. So all this crap about Trump and the Northern Lights and all this nonsense, this is all to distract you from what's about to go down in this pandemic treaty. Now, the one thing, and I'm glad I did this before I opened my mouth about this. I was expecting to hear nothing from the GOP, not from the GOP senators at least, except for maybe Ron Johnson. But I was not expecting to hear anything from the GOP on this matter. And then once this pandemic, once this World Health Assembly puts this enacts this pandemic treaty, that they would be able to find 16 Republican senators to sign off on it. Okay, but it turns out that that's not the angle that they're not going to go on this. Okay, so I started to think. So I started to poke around on some other things. So, and I remember the Paris Climate Agreement or Accord, and it's and this is one of Newsweek's fact checks. Okay, so I mean the idea that Newsweek is like whether it's unconstitutional or not, unless it's been ruled on, which it hasn't, by the Supreme Court, then you could like, depending on how specific the claim was, then you could potentially, have room for a fact check. So basically, this is an opinion check by Newsweek. Okay, because this Lauren Boebert, and she's just another one of those sock puppets, another one of the actors that's like that people think is trying to do something about this, but there's no way. It doesn't matter what she thinks. Joe Biden is upholding a campaign promise to make the climate a priority in his first days in office by signing Wednesday an executive order allowing the U.S. to rejoin the Paris Agreement to combat global warming. Representative Lauren Boebert, Republican Colorado, reacted to Biden's decision to rejoin the Paris Agreement in a Thursday tweet that reads in part, "America shouldn't spend a penny on this unconstitutional treaty unless it is ratified by the United States Senate." Under international law, legally binding agreements between Okay, hold on just a second. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution states, the President shall have the power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties provided 2/3 of the senators present concur. Although it is true that a treaty requires ratification by the Senate, an interpretation of Article 2 shows that it also can be passed by the president through an executive agreement. That's not the only interpretation. Yes, I suppose an interpretation of Article 2. There's an interpretation of Article 2 out there that says, no, they don't really have to provide advice and consent. Under U.S. law, a treaty is specifically a legally binding agreement between countries that requires ratification and advice and consent of the Senate. All other agreements, treaties in the international sense, well, there's no treaty other than an international treaty. A treaty is an agreement between nations. I mean, this is just more of their nonsense. They're non sequitur. Are called executive agreements, but are nonetheless legally binding for the U.S. under international law, according to the PHE.gov. This is Newsweek's source for that conclusion. Oh, and my computer's starting to get gnarly on me too. PHE.gov. A broken link. It's a website. A broken link to a website. And when you start poking around, when you start poking in on it, you start to get your computer starts to get mad at you. PHE.gov is a fake source. So now I can't even read the rest of the Newsweek article. I'm gonna have to shut down my whole computer now. All right, you guys. Sorry about that. Sorry about the dead air there. I was trying to... I don't even know what's going to happen. The video is probably going to end here pretty soon. If it hasn't already. No, okay. So this is their source. This is Newsweek's source for that. You do, but you don't need the advice and consent of the Senate. Because it's an agreement until it's a treaty in the international sense. Okay, this is Newsweek's source. So this is what's gonna happen, you guys. This is what's gonna happen. Just to wrap this up, okay? They're not gonna even try to get the Republicans to sign off on this. Now, all 50 Republican senators, apparently, or 48 Republican senators, apparently signed a letter written by Ron Johnson to the administration. But the Senate won't even take it up. Okay? The Democrats control the Senate. They won't take it up. We'll enter into it. It'll go into effect. And there won't be anything that we can do to stop it. By the end of the year, we'll be living in a one-world government. I mean, we already are. But it'll be undeniable to anybody with any sort of eyes to see. Okay, and it'll be well before the end of the year. They're not going to let this go to waste. The Newsweek linked to a virus. They supported their conclusion with a link to a virus. I was gonna read you something from this actual W.H.O. press release, but that it won't even let me bring it up anymore. My computer's overheating. But it says that the next pandemic is not a matter of if, but a matter of when. I'll put a link to the article, to the WHO press release that says it's not a matter of, the next pandemic is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Okay? Once we get into this agreement, then it's just a matter of time. Whether it's days, weeks, or months, I don't know. But I would expect sooner rather than later. Like, share, subscribe. Click the notification bell. Maybe we'll get lucky. Oh, here it is. There it is. It is not a matter, this is the WHO. It is not a matter of if a pandemic will happen again. It is a matter of when. We cannot afford to miss this historic opportunity to make the world safer, safer from the next pandemic threat. Okay. So there it is, right from their own mouths. Okay, they're going to strip all the countries of the world of their sovereignty. So I'm out.